Welcome to Geotab Online Training. Today's session is our HOS solution, Geotab Drive.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Geotab Online Training. This is Carrie Carter, and I have with me Jordan Guter, and Stephanie is on the line, and she's going to walk us through the sales side or the intro side of the HOS Geotab Drive. So if you have any questions, please, I think you probably all know what you need to do. You're going to go down to the questions box down on the bottom right and put in your questions, and if it pertains to the topic, we will talk about it. Some of it will be answered offline, and some we will bring up right in front if we need to. Can we start off with a visual check and an audio check? If someone could just write down there that you can hear us and that you can see the screen. Okay? All right, that's great. Just a comment on the HOS Geotab Drive to start with. It does require support. So what we're going to do here is we're going to split this up. This is the sales part, or the intro. It will give you an introduction to Geotab Drive, how it works, how to sell it, the things, you know, your high points. And then after, on the 25th of February, what we're going to have is an hour-and-a-half session that will take you more into the operations part of things. As I said, it does require support, so we want to make sure that you're up and running with it sufficiently. Play with it as much as you can. Okay? Also, one more piece of troubleshooting. If you find your line is crackly or breaking up, you can hang up and dial back in again. Sometimes that straightens it out. Okay, so without further of anything, Stephanie, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks very much, Carrie.
Okay.
Hey guys, we're really excited to bring you the Geotab Drive application. There's been a lot of talk and discussion about this as it's gone through development, and it's a very exciting product. I think that you'll find that it's going to be a good fit for your customers, and it's clean and easy to use. The slide deck that we're going through today will be available once we've completed all of the training on the Geotab Drive in MyAdmin. Only those resellers who go through the training will have access to sell the hours and create an hours reserve system that is clean, easy to use, easy to deploy, and at a very effective price point. It is built on the HTML5 web platform. We have chosen to go to market with Android first because Android is the easiest to work with. Updates are done through the Google Play Store. It's all done automatic. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to do anything. If we have a new build, it goes to the Play Store. It automatically flows out to the fleet. So it's very easy from that perspective. This whole application has been built again with the same Geotab theory about open source. We want to create it in such a way that we can add on features that make sense to these kinds of customers. The tablets are easily purchased and easily replaced. My advice when you get into this Android market, you do need a tablet that has its own SIM card. So it's very important to understand the prospect's carrier choice and to work with that carrier to source the tablets. I will tell you that depending upon which carrier it is, they have a tablet they have as a go-to. It's a Tab 3 or a Tab 2 or a Nexus 7. It just depends on which carrier we're talking about. We can add additional applications to run on that tablet. So for example, you might have a fleet that wants to do hours of service in DVIR, but they also want to run their routing and scheduling application on that same tablet. This is the value add and the beauty of the Android solution is you have one device that now has multiple functions within the vehicle. And it's not limited. The Garmin solution that we'll talk about on Thursday is a great, cheap, and cheerful, easy way to get into hours of service, but it is more of a purpose-built solution. It does navigation and hours of service without the expandability that you get on this Android front. Today, we're offering the hours of service and the DVIR. Hours of service is supporting the U.S. Property carrying drivers only. All of the other flavors of regulations like agricultures and oil fields and things like that will come as the demand makes it necessary, but for the most part, your basic property carrying driver, we're good to go. Future state for this is to offer messaging, like I said, a built-in routing integration, fuel interaction information, all on this same Android tablet. Okay, so
The vehicle package is really quite simple. You need a Go6, you need the IOX USB PWRF. What this is this section of the connector connects into the Go6. This end of the connector connects to the tablet power cord that comes with the tablet. You take the little wall plug off the end of it. That USB connector now connects right into the IOX, and then we give it a little zip tie or black electrical tape to hold the two plugs together. All set there. The tablet, you can use a variety of different, again, I think that my experience with this product over the last 8 or 9 months is that it's best to partner with their cell carrier of choice. The cell carriers know the coverage in the market area where these vehicles are going to operate. They can look at their data plans and come up with the right data package for the Android tablet itself to run that Drive application. I think we're finding somewhere between 25 and 50 megabytes of data depending upon how the different trucks operate. Remember that the more logs that you do, starts and stops, drivers changing in and out of vehicles, that's going to increase the data consumption. So it's not a flat number. It's going to be subject to the way that fleet operates. I think most of the fleets are starting with a 100 megabyte plan, or I think they've got a couple of interesting packages out there. But data is relatively inexpensive, so that's not too big a concern. They buy the tablet and the data plan from the carrier of their choice. If you want to get in the tablet business, that's your choice. From a Geotab perspective, we're not going anywhere near that. The carriers know their stuff, let them do their thing, we'll do our thing, everybody will be happy in the end. An MDM is a mobile device management software. You may have a fleet that wants to restrict the access to using the tablet to do other things. Anything else. We've worked with a couple of them, AirWatch and FiberLink, and the carrier is going to tell you, which one this fleet already has licenses for and how we can expand that. Again, that's why I think this is a good carrier conversation at this point in the game. A mount, you can use a variety of different mounts, and the fleets have had a very diverse request as far as what they want for mounting. Some of them want the tablet to be permanently mounted to the vehicle and locked in place, and so that it's not a likely suspect for theft, it's not going to get broken and those kind of things. And I have other fleets that say, no, I want to be able to get it in and out of the mount quickly so that I can walk around and do my circle check and take care of everything, and then I'll mount it and plug it in when I go to drive. Either one is perfectly acceptable. There are a couple of different options available. So on to the device requirements. You must have the Android operating system 4.1 and higher. The sensitive touchscreen, whatever you want to call it, it's a touchscreen. 7-inch is the size that the application is laid out for, but I've run it on my S3 phone with no issues. You just kind of have to scroll around to get to all the data. The tablet has to have a built-in GPS. It's part of the application. It needs that. And it has to be certified by Google. You can find a $39 tablet out there, but it's not on the Google Play Store, so it will not get the auto updates. It must be certified by Google, okay? And then that USB charging cord that came in the box is the one that we're going to use. We're just going to take the wall plug end off of it and plug it into the USB connector. All of that, and then again, the devices that we've tested heavily are the Galaxy Tab 2, the Galaxy Tab 3, and the Nexus 7, and the carriers typically offer one or the other. Again, that's why it's a carrier conversation. Any questions, Jordan?
There's actually one good question, which, it's pretty simple, but I think we should bring up. Can we download the Android app?
Yes, you can. If you have an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store, search for Geotab Drive, and download the app. It will not function properly without a Go device connected to it and being attached to a Go 6 device, but you can definitely see the font, the feel, the look of the app from the Play Store. Okay.
And somebody just followed up a question asking if they can download for iPhone.
Yeah, so iPhone uses a different operating system and a different updating mechanism, and they have a lot of different restrictions on how the application can interact with that iPhone. I'm not going to say that it won't happen. It is not supported today. It's something that we have on our radar that we are future state looking into doing, but it will require development work to have to make all of those pieces work. Again, I started with Android is the easy one. They make it a lot a lot easier to do business with them as far as their restrictions and things like that. So we did the easy one first, and we will have more of an update on this at the Geotab Connect next week. The RAM mounts, there are a couple of different options available. You can get different sizes of mounts, different lengths of mounts. It really just depends on what you're looking for. The RAM mounts are a little easier to get the tablet in and out of. There's also one from ProClip that locks the tablet down and it kind of holds onto the tablet a little bit more securely. Again, it's a preference as to how the fleet wants to deploy the device. Okay, so let's talk about what this Geotab Drive application does and does not support in its current state. It supports the U.S. Federal Property Carrying 395.15 compliant 60-hour, 7-day, 70-hour, 8-day duty cycle. So your basic property carrying driver. Beer, bread, linens, groceries, all of those good things, you're good to go. You want a charter bus or a school bus, not so much. You can track the driver's time spent in each of the duty statuses. Your on-duty to driving and driving to on-duty status change is done automatically based on the movement on the vehicle. So when you put it in drive and start to drive, it automatically knows that the vehicle is driving, and it takes the driver from on-duty to on-duty and driving. As soon as it stops the vehicle, it has a 5-minute counter. It counts down the 5 minutes, and it says, oh, look, we've stopped. It goes back 5 minutes and changes your duty status to on-duty, not driving. So it's really a quite smart app as far as that goes. We have violations alerts to the drivers. We have alerts to the driver for not being logged in. It's actually a spoken word message to the driver to tell them to stop and log in. We have big day support. Big day is an opportunity for a driver to get 2 extra hours of on-duty time. It's not drive time, but on-duty time a day. We do have it structured that we will add more rules as time goes by. Again, we're going to talk some more about this next week when we're all together, but the idea is that we're going to expand the rule set. We're going to go into Canadian logs. We're going to help with all of those kinds of things as well. The My Geotab backend gives you visibility to all the driver logs, all the violations, and all of the vehicle inspection reports. Okay, so the application itself is very clean and concise. I think you can see here, this is the status tab. There are 4 tabs across the top of the application: status, graph, logs, and verify. When I go to the status tab, it lets me see my 4 duty statuses that I can change between. Off, it's off duty. SB is sleeper berth, D is driving, and on is on duty. Rest in, driving left, duty left, and cycle left are the 4 clocks that are running against this driver for this period. The rest in is a new rule that went into play of July 1st of last year. It basically says that a driver must take a 30-minute off-duty break within the first 8 hours of drive time. If he's on duty at that 7-hour, 59 seconds, he's immediately going into violation at the 8th hour. So it's important to make sure that, you know, we monitor in the list here, and the countdown bar is always going to be the lowest number. The one he's going to hit first is usually that rest in time frame. So you can see his time remaining. As the time counts down, I think it changes colors to something that's more eye-popping, and when he's driving in violation, it's very obvious. Okay? So we talked about minimum time left, the driving status, and then the automatic transition between on duty and not driving and driving based on what the truck does. It automatically moves the driver. So our hours of service graph, which is the next tab over, takes us our familiar midnight to midnight time frame, and our 4 duty statuses are down the left. The time spent in each is down the right. You have the color coding here to tell you some things about the different logs. A gray log is an unverified log. In an electronic log world, an unverified log is the equivalent of a non-signed log by the driver. The electronic process of verifying the log is the same as the signature a driver would place on a paper log. Once he does the verification process, the log goes to this green color that you see in the middle. A yellow log is marked as such because someone has edited that log, If I had already verified that log and you edit it in the back office, it becomes a new unverified log for me to validate that that edit is in fact what I correctly drove. Okay, and then red, where you see this little blotch of red here in the middle, this is where the driver was in violation. So the color code's pretty easy to follow. It's very easy to see. The total durations in each status are automatically calculated here to the side. In a paper log world, the guy's doing this with a pencil and a piece of paper and a ruler and calculating his time down the side. So you can imagine how quickly, how much time this saves the driver in a day, that he's not having to draw all these little hashes and lines and making notes all over him. I think you're going to find that the average driver is going to save somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes per day in just simplifying that paperwork process. Okay, the logs tab, which is the next tab over, shows us the RODS, or record of duty status, for the past 7 to 8 days in a text format. So in the graph, I was in the bars. In the logs, I'm looking at it step by step, one log change after another. On duty, off duty, sleep or work driving, off duty again. The location, the distance, the time, everything is tallied up on the screen here, so it's very easy to scroll through and see how much time you spent in each status. Very helpful for roadside inspections. On the Verify tab, this is the last tab in the list across the top here. This is that step where the driver signs his logs. According to the regulation, a driver has 14 days from the date that he drives it to turn a log into his carrier. Electronically, that works the same way. He has 14 days to verify his logs. If he logs out, it's going to prompt him to verify his logs before he logs on. If he goes 10, I think at 10 days we start reminding him that he has logs that need to be verified. So it's really hard to forget to verify your logs. It's pretty good about prompting you along the way. You have these little radio buttons down the side that you can click 1, 2, 3, or you can select all and verify the whole string of duty status changes. And that is the signature. That's the electronic signing of a log and making it official within the hours of service system. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about on this hours of service stuff is there is certain times in the day when a driver has to be able to connect to the server. Okay? You cannot log into an Android device if you have no cellular coverage. Okay, you have to have cellular coverage to be able to log in or log out. If I'm just going to scroll backwards through a couple slides here just to talk for a second. Okay, if I'm logged in, there's a name up here on the, and my name is the name up on the menu bar. I am logged into this tablet. I'm authenticated, I've got my logs, everything is good. I can change my duty status by pushing these buttons and moving throughout the duty status, but I have to have cellular coverage to log out of the system at the end of the day. Logging out takes the logs off of this device and wipes it out. Okay? So it's very important that you cannot sell hours of service in a market that has no cellular coverage. You have to have cellular coverage on the Go 6 and you have to have cellular coverage on the tablet to make the system work well. Now, if you're logged on duty and you can run around and do all of your logs, and at the end of the day you come back to a place that has good cellular coverage, you can log out at that point in time and your logs are completely valid and legal and everything else. It's logging into the tablet and logging completely out of the tablet at the end of the day. Going off duty is not a requirement, or, just going off duty for a break. I can go off duty here by clicking the off duty button and I can take my break and come back and don't have to be in cellular coverage for that. Does that make sense? It's very important that we understand the limitations to technology here. We are not satellite-based hours of service, so it's important that we understand. I think it is important to understand why the IOX connects the Go 6 to the tablet. There's really 2 reasons for that. When you connect the Go 6 to the tablet itself, it allows us to automate the turning on of the tablet when you turn the ignition in the truck on. Okay? The reason that I say that is that if the tablet's just there in black, it's not prompting the driver to log in. If you don't have a connection, some data feed between the Go 6 and the tablet itself, you may not remember to log in today. The other point is that 395.16 was the regulation for the United States that was passed, then it was repealed. In 395.16, there were some changes in how you had to be connected to the tablet. Some of the data goes wirelessly across the cellular modem in the tablet, and some of the data, like ignition on-off status, comes directly from the Go6 device into the tablet. The reasons why it makes it a more universal product to have a SIM in the Android tablet itself is because if I have an application where I'm doing proof of delivery, I can take it out to the delivery that I just made, take a picture with my Android tablet with the camera in it, and now I have a proof of delivery, a latitude and longitude and everything else based off of where the picture was taken. So that's kind of a reason why there. And again, on the 395.16, if they come back and they say, oh, you have to be able to get this piece of data directly from the Go device, firmware change will allow that data to feed into the Android. So we're future-proof compatible. Does that make sense as well?
Now that we have the line open, we do actually have a question that's too repeating. I thought maybe we can bring it up.
Okay.
It's just about a lot of people asking about the fact that the Go6 is connected to the tablet.
Yep.
And why from there we would need to have a SIM on the tablet, not just have the data flow through, and what exactly does that cord do?
Okay, so the cord, as I just explained, the cord has a couple of functions. It turns the tablet on when the ignition goes on, so it prompts the driver to remember to log in. It feeds certain data directly to the tablet for the app, and it also, because we feed the power to it, we're also charging the tablet through that connection with the Go6, much like we do in the Garmin world. So we can tell you when the tablet's connected and when the tablet's disconnected, just like we can with the Garmin. Okay? And then again, for future proof, depending upon what they come out with the legislation for 395.16 or whatever number they give the next iteration, we want to make sure that we are connected to that device so that we can pass data through. And I think I covered why the tablet has its own connection. There's other apps, there's other things that are going to be pushing data in a bigger scheme of things than just this one app. And that's why you'd go with an Android over the Garmin, because you want to do more things with this than just a single purpose. So I think we've kind of covered off, you know, what goes on in the vehicle, what the driver does in the vehicle, how he interacts with the device in the vehicle. Let's talk a little bit about how he inspects that vehicle and the process that goes on there. The regulations, and when we do the operations guide, which I think is 2 weeks from now, we'll go over in great detail how all these things work, but this is more of a sales education process today. At the end of driver's shift, he has to do something called a post-trip inspection. If he's got a tractor and a trailer, he has to inspect both pieces of equipment before he can go off duty for the day. That inspection involves a bunch of different elements that the Federal Motor Carriers Association says they have to do. And it's all built into the tablet, and they can easily do that. At the beginning of the shift, the driver reviews the past report, he certifies that it's safe to drive, and he begins his day. So there's a pre-trip and a post-trip, and the entire process is monitored and documented throughout the whole flow. In the vehicle, when we go to a DVIR, here I've got a truck and I've got a trailer. These inspections that you can see down here are grayed out, so these are closed. The repairs have either been made or deemed not necessary. That's this first little set of things. The second little checkbox shows that this vehicle has been certified as safe to operate. Both DVIRs are closed, which means this is a complete process. If I want to open a new one, I click on the truck and I can start to review a new DVIR, see what they found on the last one, add any new defects, complete the process. So you touch the asset button like that, and it's going to open up a list of the common things that you inspect on the vehicle. I can have, if I find something on the brakes, if I tick on the brakes, it's going to pop up a window and it's going to ask me what was the problem with my brakes. And then if I have a coupling device issue, I'm going to click that one and it's going to give me another window. I can select multiple defects. I can scroll down to the bottom of the list and make a remark, just type in a comment, or I can say that I found no defects, whichever is done. Once you have created a DVIR and it's done, gone through all the process, you cannot add defects to it or remove them. So it's a once-off kind of an issue. You do the DVIR, and either that DVIR is good, or you close it out and you do another one so that you can find any new defects and put them in play. Okay, if I want to see a DVIR, I touch the DVIR and I can review that. This inspection section says this is what John Smith, the driver, found at this date and this time, and this is what he found, okay? So this is the driver commenting at this point in time. If I'm the mechanic, or I took it to a shop and had a mechanic do the work, I can say that I replaced the brake pads. That was my corrective action, and then I can repairs are made or not necessary. Touching the button logs that thing as the user who did that function. So if I took it to shop and replaced the pads, I could replace the brake pads, the Jiffy Lube, invoice number 123, and that would be my comment. Now, before the start of the next shift, the new driver of this truck is going to look at the DVIR that was done before. He's going to see that there was a problem with the brakes and that the brake pads were replaced. So he sees all of the DVIR just like we looked on the previous screen. If I have a corrective action, the driver can say, hey, the brakes work well now. This vehicle is, you click the Safe to Operate button. Okay? So I found a defect. It was repaired, and the repair was documented, and then I certified that that repair done actually fixed what was wrong with the vehicle. So if a DVIR is unsafe, if I came in and I said, well, you fixed the brake pad, that wasn't what's wrong with the truck, the brakes still don't work well, I would now mark that this vehicle is unsafe to operate. It says, there's a validation step that says, you marked it unsafe, is that what you mean? If you say yes, this is what the screen looks like on the DVIR. It says it's unsafe to drive. So it needs to go back to the shop before this truck can be driven. Okay? This DVIR is closed out. It's gone through its last step. I need to do a new pre-trip inspection to say the brakes still are not ready to work order off of that. Okay, so let's talk about DVIR hours of service stuff. Okay, so in the activity screen, there is now a new HOS option. And under that HOS option is where you will see the duty status changes, violations, and I think the trailers listed there as well. Every line is a record of duty status change. So kind of like if you think of a trip's history report, you've got one line per trip. You've got one line in this report for each record of duty status change. So I went on duty in the morning, I went to driving, I went on duty, I went off duty, I went driving, I went off duty. However the flow of your day goes, it's one line per event. Logs are done in the time zone of the vehicle or the driver's home zone. So where he heads out from is where he does his logs from. Even if he crosses multiple state lines, his logs are where he came from, the time zone that he started in. His record of domicile, whatever word you want to use, but that home zone where he dispatches out of is where his time zone starts. If you notice in the My Geotab software, there's a lot more time zones to choose from. That's because there are all of these crazy cities and states that don't do daylight savings time, and they do daylight savings time, and they don't switch this, and there's a lot of variables that you have to keep track of in our new world here with the hours of service. So it's not just East Coast, Central Time Zone, Mountain, and Pacific. There's a lot of different variables within that list of time zones. If you look here on the right, you can see, and I know that's probably coming through fairly small in the meeting, but when you download this, you will see that there are little checks where the driver has validated his logs. These logs down here are unchecked. That affects the way the logs behave from here on out. An unvalidated log is not a real log. If you went to print a compliance report from the software, it's not going to give you anything. So you must train your drivers in the beginning to validate their logs, preferably at the end of every day, so that the logs are up to date and on time always. You can edit the log for a driver. The most common thing you're going to see on a driver log is the fact that somebody forgot to log out. right? I went off duty at the end of the day. I forgot to log out. So you go in and you create an off-duty log with the date time stamp when the vehicle stopped moving. The nice thing about the Geotab system, because we're really smart and we know where that vehicle was, we know how many miles it drove and all those kind of things, if I change his off-duty status to 6 o'clock tonight, all the driving time, all of the on-duty stop time, everything is calculated, those miles and everything that happened with that vehicle, it's going to automatically capture those miles. You don't have to go back and figure out from the point in time that he went off duty and forgot to log back on duty or whatever the case may be. Once you make this edit in the My Geotab software, you make this edit, it automatically fills in the miles driven, the locations, the times, the addresses. It's all done for you automatically. So it's a pretty awesome system. Even from an administration perspective, this is a really nice feature for the fleets. The graph view in the My Geotab looks remarkably similar to the graph view in the Android application. You have the midnight to midnight graph, you've got your 4 duty statuses, you've got your totals down the side, you've got your familiar color coding that shows this is a violation, this is unverified, verified, and this is a log that's been edited. Question?
Somebody was asking quickly how to edit a log. I know you covered it, but maybe we can do it just like really quickly.
Sure. Let me just go back.
It's just an important factor.
Yeah, that's fine. It's really powerful if you've ever worked with another system where you have to go back and figure out how many miles they drove after they forgot to log off duty or they forgot to log on duty or whatever. This really gets you a lot of brownie points with a prospective fleet. So basically, from viewing its log, you can, in the actual screen, there is a menu up here at the top, and you can add a log. So what I would do is I would come in here and I would select add a log, which pops up this little window. I know that I'm editing John Smith's log because I have to be on a particular driver's log to make an edit to it. So I'm in John Smith's log, and I say, oh, he forgot to log off duty on Friday night, and he actually got done, and the vehicle stopped moving, and by the time he did his vehicle inspection report, it was probably 12:22 in the afternoon when he stopped moving. That's what the trip history says, so that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to change the status to off. In this little status, the pull down here, there are 4 different duty statuses you can choose from. Pick off duty. It knows which vehicle he was driving. He knows the driver. You can also, create a co-driver, change trailers, or do whatever, and the address is there. And then I always just like in the annotation to say driver forgot to log off duty, driver forgot to log on duty. Whatever the reason for making a log edit is, I like to make a notation of it. All log edits are marked in the grid here. You can see that it'll have a little pencil showing that it was edited, and then it also shows that the log was edited. When you look at it on the graph in this yellow, it shows that that was a log that's been edited by someone. Once the log is edited, there is no way to take that designation off of the record of duty status or out of that grid line.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing that you need to understand is, if you're running paper logs, somebody has to sit down and add up all those paper logs to see for the 7 or 8 day period how many driving hours, how many duty hours, how many breaks did he take, did he miss anything, what are his violations. In the My Geotab world, it does all of that for you automatically. The rules are built in. It's not part of the exceptions engine. These are DOT rules. These are separate. Okay, DOT logs and the DVIRs and all this kind of stuff, the data is kind of handled a little bit differently, and when we talk a little bit more about the legal ramifications, you'll understand why they're separated. There will be a point in the future where you can write exception rules about log data, but it doesn't exist today. They are 2 separate things. So if I'm looking at a violations report, I'm looking at, and this can be run like for the entire fleet of drivers, or I can run it just for my guy John Smith. I want to see what violations he had, and just like in any other Geotab report, you go to the options button, you select the date range that you want to run the violations report for, which drivers or group of drivers, or the same thing you always do, click apply, and it gives you back a report that looks like this. John Smith had a duty violation. He's had a maximum 14-hour limit hit. He had a rest violation. He was driving more than 8 hours since his last 30-minute rest break. he was driving more than 11 hours in a given day, he broke another rest rule, and he maxed out his 60-hour duty period for the 7-day work week. So you can see here that all of the violations are right there. You can see exactly what you have going on. If a driver forgot to log off duty and he's in violation on all these things because it's Friday that he forgot to log off duty, it's been 3 days now, time has passed, he's in violation. The violation hasn't ended because he's not logged off duty yet. So these would not have an end date to that violation if he was still in that current state of violation. I hope that makes sense. Kind of like you make a stop in a trips history report and that stop hasn't ended yet, it doesn't have a close date. It's treated the same way in the log system here. The violations report is not exportable to Excel in its current state. It is a limitation of the system. It is something that will be addressed, but like all things in development, there's a timeline and a path to resolution on that. It's something that's in the works, but today you can view them, but you can't print them out. You can't automate an email report to a supervisor. Those kind of things are things that we're still working on. So the DVIR edit and review process is pretty cool in my opinion because, again, you've got all the checks and balances that the regulation requires. They're built into the process flow, and when I show you how this works electronically and then I explain it paper-wise, you'll understand why this is such a cool feature. So this portion of the DVIR, we're now looking at the DVIR in the back office, my Geotab software, okay? I can take a paper DVIR and create it in my Geotab by simply following the process steps and filling in the blanks, okay? When I get down, this is what I found, the brakes are making noises. I can come down here and say that John S. at geotab.com is the mechanic who changed repaired by John S. and the brakes are fixed, okay? So now I've got the driver doing his part, the mechanic doing his part, and it's a pretty straightforward process in the system. The next morning, if you'll remember, the driver is going to see all of these things on his in-vehicle screen, and then he can test those brakes and make sure that that brake job fixed the problem and certify that it's safe to use. I think the documentation is really good. What you need to remember about doing a paper vehicle inspection report. So the driver fills out his portion on a triplicate form, okay? He's got to keep his vehicle inspection form with him. The mechanic has to take his copy and go do the repair. And then the certification, the driver has to get all copies together and certify that the repair was done. Can you imagine what a paper nightmare that would be? I mean, I can't imagine that anybody gets it right, to be honest with you. In the electronic log and DVIR world, the legislation says that you must keep 6 months worth of logs on file. When we do the operations guide, we'll talk about who has to keep what on file. Geotab has to keep a copy, and the fleet has to have their own separate independent copy of these logs. There's a utility in the system that allows you to do that. So, it's pretty easy to PDF off all of your drivers and be good to go. The log data and the trip data is kept separate because in a hours of service and DVIR world, you must keep the logs for 6 months, it's the regulation. You must keep the DVIRs for 3 months, it's the regulation. If you have more than the 6 or the 3 and you get audited by the DOT, it keeps every piece of paper that you have in your possession against you in an audit. So it's important that you're able to purge the log data separate from the trip data. All right, I think that I've brain dumped most everything I know about the selling side of this. The importance of having a carrier understanding coverage areas is important. There's a lot of things that you can do when you're out of coverage. There are certain things that you have to have coverage for, and that doesn't matter or the Garmin in the future. You just have to be in coverage to transmit data, to download edits, these kinds of things. So you have to think about where you're going to be deploying the solution and find the right tablet partner and the right Go device for each vehicle.
If we have any more questions, please submit that questions bar. We will stay here. And though we have a few more minutes, we will stay on the line. If you have more questions or you want to open anything up to the forum, go ahead.
We have a question just because of sort of what you're covering. If the recommendation is just to say no to oil fields.
We do not have the specific rule set that governs the oil fields at this point in time. If you're looking for that oil field exemption, the weight it well. The last time I checked into it, the legality of writing off the wait time at well was being hotly debated, and I don't know whether it's going to continue to be a separate timeline that you have to maintain or not. So I think we'll wait until they make a ruling on that legislation, and then we'll decide, how to implement the rule change. As always, Geotab is a believer that opportunities drive development. So if you have something that you want to get on the, feature request, you can open a case in my Geotab ticket and ask for a feature request, outline what your opportunity is, and that's how decisions are made on what we build next.
Another question would be the Canada timeline, when we're looking at the Canada timeline.
I think we're going to talk about these things in more detail next week when we're all together. I believe it is 2014, but I can't tell you if it's going to be, March or August. I'll have to get some more information for you on that one.
Thank you. Also, to let everyone know that the sessions are being recorded, and they will be up on MyAdmin shortly following any one of these sessions. I try to get them up there within 4 days of the session so that you can share them with who you need to share them with. Continue from there.
And all of this documentation that we're going to use going through for all of these training sessions on this, and there's a lot of documentation. There's in-vehicle driver cards, there's the sales PowerPoint, there's the operational guide, which is a PowerPoint. All of this documentation will be made available to you once we complete all of the training. Then you can go forth and sell to your heart's content. Okay?
Yeah, that's right. The deck is available that Stephanie's used today. We will have the operations guide, which is a complete guide. That will be available as well as the driver's guides, which are both for the HOS as well as the DVIR. There's 2 different guides, and that's available for both the Geotab Drive and for the Garmin as well. So everything will be available that you see and that you'll need.
Awesome. All right, guys, I think that about concludes today's session. I appreciate everyone's time, and thank you very much for attending.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.